What is up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the weekly Wednesday Amazon Q&A show where we share some e-commerce news, some stats, the occasional business maxim, and of course, we are here to answer your questions about selling on Amazon. So if you've got a question about retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, or perhaps you just have a Keepa quandary, well, drop it in the chat and we'll be happy to help any way we can. Now, for those of you who may be new here, my name is Chris Grant. I haven't been here in 3 shows, so I apologize for that. And to my right is my prevaricatory co-host, Chris Rasick. Chris, what's going on, man? How's Wednesday treating you?
Wednesday's good. Wednesday's good. It's good to have the duo back intact. So
Yes.
welcome back.
Thank you.
You were missed. Everyone was nice. They were polite and told me I did a good job. But yeah, you're the main attraction. So
Well, I don't know about that. I'm just here for the looks. You're the real brains of the operation.
No, it's hey. So a couple things. Just we touched base. We're still catching up. You were gone, so trying to stay out of your way. I'll let you get back up to speed. But man, I and not to launch into like a segue into OAC Plus or something, but I watched a sourcing video earlier today, and just because I do a sourcing show, and I guess I wanted to start comparing notes, and just kind of see what somebody else did compared to me, and I watched him source a multi-pack of golf balls,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a 48 pack. It was like a big, one of the cheaper brands, and he suggested debundling them, which if you're not a golfer, the packages, when you break down multi-packs, are vast majority of the time, if not 100% of the time, they come in packs of 3, sometimes 4 at the most. But this was, I think he did a 24 pack and suggested breaking them into 2 12 packs. So it just made me appreciate the many years ago, 5 years ago or whatever, that I found you, and it comes up every once in a while, but it's amazing. You kind of put the blinders on, once you find your people, once you find your tribe, you kind of put the blinders on, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you should take the blinders off and see what kind of bad advice is out there. Of course I'm not suggesting that. When you do kind of get a peek, if the blinder slips a little bit and you get a peek of what else is out there, it's troubling.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is, well, first of all, you know how you get like tension headaches in the back of your neck, and you get like, headaches in the front. Those kind of videos, they give me a headache real deep. Almost feels like a stroke. But the unfortunate thing, for me at least, and the reason why I would rather say, I don't know, let me get back to you, is because our actions, they've got serious consequences. We could give somebody some bad information by mistake, and that could result in the loss of a business, the loss of an income. And honestly, I'm not sure that I could sleep at night if I would knowingly tell people to do something that was against terms of service, because we don't know what it could take away. Now, if it's in the very beginning, and they're not relying on that money, sure, that's a little bit easier, but it's a great way to crush someone's dream. Number one. And two, let's say that they're a little bit further down the road and they're living on this income. Well, now it's even worse. I can't.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read recently, Trust Me, I'm Lying, the Ryan Holiday book. And it's, even if you're not trying to sell something, if you're not trying to become a salesperson, although it would benefit us if you eventually try to go secure some wholesale accounts and talk to distributors or even store managers if you're doing RA or something like that. It's definitely worth your while. But even if you're not planning on doing any of that, it's interesting to learn about the techniques that are used on you. And so I'm reminded of that book because confidence can mask so much bad information. Like, confidence is so powerful. You can give a wrong answer, but if you deliver it confidently and with 100% conviction, it's dangerous. But it's eye-opening to read about these sales techniques, regardless
Absolutely.
of adding it to your repertoire or not.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we've got a lot of news. I see there are already questions rolling in. Let's answer a question, and then we'll get to a little bit of news, because it is one of my favorite times of year. You all know that I like numbers, and we've got just a fire hose of data coming at us from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and I tried not to step over what Chris has already talked about. So, hey, Christy, what's going on? And I do see in here a couple of things about, is it safe for people from that mitten state to be back? No, we're not done. It was 2,191 days that we had to endure your cheating, lying, and stealing play calls and wins. And so I think we get a week. I think we get 7 days to lord this over you, rub your nose in it, and let you know that you're cheaters and you can't win without cheating, and you suck. Not you personally, just like as a whole, as an entity. Yeah, I think we get a week.
Yeah, not you, just everyone and everything around you.
All right, let's get in here. Deal Hunter, Chris, could you please explain, why do we have to close and delete listings rather than keep them as out of stock? It's kind of a safety issue, which is, it's a weird thing to say, but I'll give you a perfect example. So Clinique became gated for everybody, and everyone had the opportunity to sell out. Amazon gave us 30, 45 days, a reasonable amount of time, in my opinion. It was much nicer than a lot of other gatings. However, on, let's call it day 31, when the items went gated, not everyone had sold through everything, or they had sold through and they had not deleted the listings. They had not closed them, had not deleted them. And so there were a ton, and I'm talking hundreds of people saying, I just got a suspected IP violation. What do I do? And everyone could just close and delete the listings, and they went away. It wasn't a big deal after all. But this is something that could have been taken care of beforehand by closing and deleting the listings. Now, will it protect you from everything? No. Could you still get an inauthentic claim on something? Sure, that could still happen. But it should keep you a little bit safer from some of these silly things that pop up every now and again. And it doesn't seem to happen quite as much, but there used to be a lot of violations would happen even when you weren't in stock, because maybe an Amazon employee would feed information to some sort of brand management company, and they would just pull everybody, even if you were out of stock. So anybody who had this listed in their inventory, even if it was out of stock, they'd get that data, and you'd get a nasty gram or whatever it is. So just keeping you away from that. Now, Does closing and deleting those affect the reports that you might want to pull? No, absolutely not. All of those reports will be there anytime you need them, want them, etc. All right, let's do a little bit of news and then we'll get to the rest of your guys' questions. Happy to answer as many as you guys have. E-commerce growth surpassed retail stores on Black Friday. Um, I don't know if this is really surprising to anybody, but you need to be bullish on e-commerce. Like, there's a lot of people leaving the Amazon space right now. Actually, I saw someone who's been around for like 15 years as their last Q4, and they're out. And I've seen this a ton. Now, there is some data. I don't know how much I can. It's not perfect data because it's not from Amazon, but there are reports that there are only 25,000 new sellers in 2025. That would be like an all-time low number of new sellers. These are reasons to be bullish on e-commerce. But Black Friday e-commerce retail sales, excluding automotives, increased 10.4% year over year, while in-store sales grew at only 1.7%. This is per MasterCard. It's also preliminary data that was released on Saturday. So the data needs to settle just a little bit. In-store foot traffic from Black Friday and Saturday declined 5.3% year over year. Of course, this is early data that was released on Sunday. Excuse me. The tech company previously reported that store traffic on Friday declined 3.6% year over year. And another company said that store traffic grew by 1%. So, I mean, flat to negative, despite companies like Target giving out in-store exclusive like grab bags, which were an absolute failure. I saw a bunch of social media videos of people getting these grab bags, and they had like a pack of gum inside of them. They were just horrible. Now, by category, MasterCard found that apparel spending grew by 5.7%, including 6.1% online growth. Salesforce data for U.S. online sales found that luxury apparel and accessories, active apparel and footwear were the top performing categories for Black Friday and the entire Black Friday weekend that followed. 10% growth in e-commerce for one of the biggest sales holidays of the year, which is historically brick and mortar first. I sort of miss the fist fight videos from Black Fridays. For those of you who might be, Gen Alpha or whatever, that would be back in the Vine days. We'd see videos or World Star. We'd see videos of people getting into fist fights going into Black Friday, and now you're just shopping from your phone. But 10% is crazy growth.
Yeah, it's it's curious. I miss the stampedes as the doors open at some ungodly hour. There's a pretty funny story that my mom tells about getting pulled over at 4 a.m. She was going to Black Friday, and the cop thought it was still bar traffic letting out. But it's interesting. It's interesting because I think brick and mortar, I would question their strategy, because I think they try to get on board with what e-commerce strategy is instead of owning the advantage that they have. Because you really don't see doorbuster deals at stores anymore. Like if I was running a brick and mortar and I just couldn't get my e-commerce, I didn't have a digital footprint going. I mean, I would lean into the thing that I have that's a unique selling point, and I would go back to, because you remember there used to be just
The $5 toasters.
yes, yeah, and back when TVs were over $500, they'd have 5 units that were going to sell for $200 or $250 or something like that. We later found out they were kind of stripped down versions, but that didn't stop the frenzy of people knocking down the door and lining up waiting for the store to open. I'm surprised that they don't lean into that. Give them something that is only at the brick and mortar, instead of just trying to ride the coattails of what e-commerce is doing and extending sales out. And I think I got 4 or 5 different early access to Black Friday deals from Walmart. Like I kept getting it over and over again. I was like, is this stuck in a loop, or is this like early access wave number 4? Like it loses all punch, So I'm surprised that they didn't try to accentuate what only they can do.
It's interesting that you said that it loses its punch, because that actually takes us right into the second piece of news. Now, the holiday weekend, it drew record shoppers, both online and in store. Okay. Even though foot traffic was down, but a record 202.9 million consumers shopped from Thanksgiving Day through Cyber Monday. And this is data coming from the National Retail Federation and Prosper Insights and Analytics. That figure is up from 197 million shoppers last year and surpasses the previous record of 200.4 million set in 2023. So the number of total consumers is the biggest it's ever been. It was the largest turnout since National Retail Federation started tracking the 5-day period in 2017 and surpassed the forecast of only 187 million shoppers over the holiday weekend. And if you're not paying attention closely, this is happening over and over and over again. We've heard 3 to 4% increase in sales. We got 10%. 187 million shoppers expected. We got 203 million. The consumer is incredibly stalwart and resilient and willing to spend money. Consumers turned out both in store and online throughout the 5 days. A total of 129.5 million consumers shopped in store. Online saw 134.9 million shoppers. This data says up 9% from last year. The top gifts that were purchased were clothing and accessories at 51%, toys at 32%. This gives me a little bit of a glimmer of hope. Books and other media at 28%. I'm hoping that was more books than it is, Taylor Swift vinyls. Gift cards was 26%. That was the third most popular gift purchase during the weekend. Black Friday remains the top shopping day for both in-store and online, attracting 80.3 million in-store shoppers and 85.7 million online. This was slightly below last year's totals for Black Friday. 81.7 million in-store compared to 80.3 million in-store this year, and 87.3 million online compared to 85.7 million online. Now that sounds like bad news, okay? But Saturday drew in 62.7 million in-store consumers, up from 61.1 million last year, and 63 million online consumers compared to 53.9 million last year. Almost a 10 million consumer bump year over year for Saturday. Consumers know that Black Friday is no longer Black Friday. And so rather than rushing around, they're waiting another day. Notably, the Sunday after Thanksgiving drew a record 32.6 million in-store shoppers, a 27% increase over 2024. And 38.7 million shopped online on Sunday compared to 32.8 million last year. Cyber Monday, of course, continues to be the second most popular day for online shopping. There were 76 million online shoppers compared to 64.4 million in 2024. A huge jump for Cyber Monday. Mobile, of course, remains the most popular way for online shoppers to buy on Cyber Monday for the second year in a row, with 46.9 million consumers shopping online via their mobile device. That's up from 40.4 million last year. The top shopping destinations during Thanksgiving weekend were supermarkets at 47%, which, of course, I had to go to the supermarket like 3 times because we forgot this or that. And then online came in number 2 with 45% of all consumers shopping online. Now, here's the most interesting thing. Nearly all, or 96% of those shopping over the weekend made a holiday-related purchase, spending $337.86 on average on items like gifts, holiday apparel, decorations, and other seasonal purchases. This is up from $315.56 last year, and it's the second highest figure on record. The highest was 361 back in 2019. Approximately 67% of that total shopping spend over the weekend was spent on gifts. And we're not done. We've still got a couple of weeks of shopping to do. E-commerce is just winning. I mean, big time.
Yeah, almost every single number that you read as far as online shoppers, doing some quick math, it seemed like everything was at least a 10% increase from the previous data, which to be across the board, that's pretty telling. That tells almost as much as the 10% increase itself. It's just, there's still a segment of the population that is just now getting on board with online shopping. There's, we can argue about, the ceiling on Prime membership and stuff like that, but they're simply just people that, this still has to become, they're still getting their muscle memory, they're still putting in the reps, so this growth, who knows how long it could last, but this is great for us. This is kind of telling from the predictions that we made of the October Prime days. Everything seemed to be, we were expecting kind of a crimped hose effect. As far as like the actual holiday spending to be a little bit later in Q4. And this is certainly the kind of reporting that would prove us correct in that prediction. The rest of that prediction means we're likely to get pretty strong sales data as December moves on.
Yeah, I think so. It's if you are pricing down right now and you have giftables, I would highly suggest that you are very careful, especially if they're at FBA. If they're at an Amazon warehouse, I would be pricing up right now, or at least hold on to your prices. Wait to cut bait later on in the month, and don't forget Q5. January can be absolutely unreal. But we'll talk about that as we get a little bit closer. All right, one more little piece of news, really short piece of news, and then we're going to get through the rest of your guys' questions. Buy now, pay later hit yet another record as well. Usage of short-term financing, buy now, pay later drove $1.03 billion in online spend on Cyber Monday. That's a 4.2% year-over-year increase compared to last year, according to Adobe. And news is coming out that the buy now, pay later data is going to be added to FICO scores here soon. So
There it
that is
is.
going to get real interesting. I know that you and I have been sour on buy now, pay later. I've read some articles that has me on the fence. I'm not completely sold, but has me on the fence. And apparently, your favorite generation, which is not Z, is it Z
A-
or Alpha? Alpha.
Alpha.
Alpha. Um, but Gen Alpha is, excuse me, sorry, gross. Gen Alpha is actually using it responsibly. They're just, they, even if they've got the cash, they're saying, hey, you know what? It's a little bit easier on cash flow to make this in 4 payments, not pay any interest. I mean, they're kind of doing what we do with Amazon inventory. They're just saying, yeah, I've got the money, but they're going to give me 2 months or 4 months to pay this without any interest. I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that. So it's kind of a good idea for
Yeah.
those that are responsible.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Buy now, pay later is in theory, it's a great idea. We started punching holes in it because of what we know about the average consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a family member who, they say correlation isn't causation, but she has to borrow money all the time, and she buys groceries on buy now, pay later. It's like I couldn't imagine. Could you imagine paying for your ramen noodles? Like 4 weeks after you've already eaten them. It's just you can see how it could go off the rails very, very quickly, right? It's the same
Absolutely.
concept why we like selling in January. It's the exact same concept because it's not real money. Gift cards in January, like January is one of our best sales months, because people don't treat it like real money. They just spend frivolously and excessively. It's the same thing. Buy now, pay later. You're not doing your future self any favors. It's the same reason that diets fail because we just can't we're just not nice enough to our future selves, and we actually sabotage our future selves, if we're being completely honest. But yeah, and for the record, Gen X is my favorite generation. I prefer my own, like any normal old man on his porch yelling for kids to get off their lawn. That's but second place, Gen Alpha, because I let like it makes me hopeful, because
Mm-hmm.
you feel like every generation hates the generations that come after them and whatnot, but to actually see Gen Alpha look at the generations above them and go, well, I'm not doing that. Like they see like the millennials and stuff like that. That's right. Big T, bring back clear Crystal Pepsi. Stuff was the bomb. I don't understand why it didn't catch on. But yeah, it's, you're right. Absolutely. Used responsibly. It can be an effective tool. It can be pretty clever, as far as like financial strategy, if you have the discipline. And
Mm-hmm.
it's great that I think it's great that Gen Alpha has seen enough of the potential pitfalls to kind of craft it to help them,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Absolutely. I saw someone the other day talk about the next generation, and how they were doomed and all this stuff, and I'm just like, man, you gotta chill. Like the kids figure it out. uh you
Mm-hmm.
know all right, let's answer some more questions here. Deal Hunter, does Amazon refund sellers the buy cost or the selling price for items the customer did not return after Amazon issued an automatic refund 30 days prior? I believe it's now 60 days that they refund or reimburse you at. it would be reimbursed. They have a reimbursement figure for each of the items now. So you can go in and see what Amazon will reimburse you for. Or on refunds, do they reimburse the selling cost minus the fees? I can't remember now off the top of my head. But you will get reimbursed something normally after 60 days if the customer does not return the item. David, for a Section 3, you click Appeal to submit the documentation through Seller Central. That seems counterintuitive. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding this one. So for a Section 3, do you click Appeal to submit the additional paperwork through Seller Central? Yeah. Yes, you will. Actually, typically, the additional documentation typically goes via email. You submit some initial documentation through Seller Central, then you have your video call. Then typically they email you asking for more information, and you reply to that email. That's typically how it goes.
Yeah, and usually, and don't be surprised that you presented during the video call as well.
Mm-hmm. See, Deal Hunter, I was selling an item FBA and sold out 4 months ago. 2 hours ago, I received an FBA order pending, but I'm out of stock. Is this related to the fact I did not close and delete the listing? No. Amazon very well could have found one. And it may not even be yours. They may have just found one that someone kicked into the corner and they're like, hey, you know what? We'll give it to this guy. So you sort of won the Amazon lottery. I would just take it and move on, and that probably won't be a problem.
Bank error in your favor. Collect $100 or whatever the Monopoly card was. I actually have you seen any reverse reimbursements pop up recently?
I've gotten several recently. Yep, they've reversed quite a few.
Yeah, so there must be some sort of cleanup going on in their fulfillment centers.
Yeah. Hey, Chris's first, congrats on your team's first win in 5 years. Thank you. Y'all been doing well this year. Question, is there anything I need to do to my new OAC account to get the Keepa SOPs added? No, there is not anything you need to do. That is on me. Give me a few days. I am almost caught up from Thanksgiving, and that is very high on the to-do list. Can you please state the 25K new sellers again for what period? So the stat that I heard, and I'm taking this with a big grain of salt because one, it's not directly from Amazon, and two, I just don't know how well the data is aggregated or how well it can even be aggregated. But the stat that I heard is that there is a net new number of sellers on Amazon in the US in 2025 of 25,000 sellers. Now, what that means, that doesn't mean that only 25,000 people signed up to become sellers this year. It means that the number of sellers could very well have been 1 million new sellers this year. However, the amount that have fallen away is large enough to make the growth only 25,000. It's been much more in the past. David, I got a Section 3 on a long deleted listing, but I'm assuming I didn't close it before deleting it. How do I get the listing off my account if it's no longer in my inventory? If you deleted it, there's nothing else you really can do. Chances are Amazon is just doing a spot check. I mean, just because we close and delete things doesn't mean that Amazon doesn't know what we've sold. Okay, they're not blind to our entire account history. So they're probably just doing a spot check. Maybe it's something that was highly counterfeited. Maybe it's something they've had trouble with from other sellers. And so they're just checking in on yours. Deal Hunter, what does the orange triangles and the blue squares mean in the Keepa chart? And is there a way to tell when a sale happens from the chart or somewhere else? So the orange triangles are the FBA price that is pulled when Keepa scrapes the data. The blue squares are the MFR price when Keepa scrapes the data. Those are what those are. There was a time, and I'm kind of glad this is over. There was a time that people thought that each one of those triangles and squares meant that a sale happened. And that is not the case. That is just when data was scraped. Now, is there a way to tell when a sale happens from the chart? No. We cannot know when exactly a sale happens on Amazon from Keepa. We only get to know directionally what's happening. Now Amazon will sometimes tell us how many sales happened, within a range over the past 30 days. But that's as close as we get. The only way to have true data is to send in some units and see what happens. Deal Hunter, I have this seasonal item that sells only at this period. Should I close and delete the listing at the end of the season, even if I know I will relist it next year? Yeah, just create a new SKU for next year. Having one new SKU a year on one ASIN's not going to hurt anything. Is there no interest with buy now, pay later? Usually, you get a certain period of time to pay no interest on buy now, pay later. Yeah, it's great. And do they do a credit pull? There's usually there's not a full credit pull, but from what I understand, they do like a soft hit that doesn't even show up. Usually, so. Deal Hunter, I am selling on Amazon for over a year now, and I have 0 reviews, flying under the radar. This is not necessarily a bad thing, my friend. What do you recommend to get reviews other than adding the thank you for supporting my small business sticker I already do? So, one, please do not send stickers with your inventory. That is you're probably not breaking a rule, but the problem is if that particular sticker is asking for a review of any kind, and if Amazon were to see it, or if a customer were to complain or something like that, and they misinterpret it as you incentivizing for a review, then you're in trouble. And that's trouble that you normally can't get out of. So I would just not do it. Amazon made a change to reviews recently. And one, they're really not that important. Two, if you really want to try to get some, go to each one of the order screens, on Seller Central, and there's request feedback up at the manage order screen. You can request to get some feedback. If you use something like Boxem, I have my Boxem account set up so that after 14 days and they have not returned the item, then I go in and I request feedback from them. I've had that turned on for 2 months now, or whenever it came out. It's a newer feature in Boxem. I've gotten 0. Like, Amazon is clearly disincentivizing reviews, seller feedback anyway. So I wouldn't worry about it. Oh, Luke, nice. Made a sourcing cost post, no AC plus. That's fantastic. Sourcing costs should be used for Amazon lost and damaged, where they should reimburse you what you lost from the actual sale if the customer doesn't return the item. I appreciate that. I thought that was the case. I'm glad you clarified it. T-Ware, do you think the offers tab on Keepa under data, which shows how many sellers sold lifetime in past 30 days, is accurate? No, not at all. I wouldn't even spend time looking at that data. I'll give you the biggest reason why without going into a really long rant on what's going on. But let's say, for example, that I send in 100 units and I send in 100 units and 75 of them get put in FC transfer. Well, now what it looks like is I checked in 100 units. Keepa found that I checked in 100 units, and then immediately 75 went away because I sold 75 of them. And you'll see that quite frequently. And then they'll come back in stock. And then maybe I sell through all 100 units over the next 30 days. Well, it shows that I sold 175 units because 100 got checked in, 75 went away to FC transfer. They come back, and then I sell through all my inventory. And so it's not that Keepa is trying to give you bad data. It's just that there is no good way to collect that kind of data. Do you close and delete the listing the same time or close and wait 15? I do it at the same time. I always get the email that I closed it. I don't wait for it to come, but I get it, even though I deleted it like 30 seconds after I closed it. And so I know it's taking the closing first. Yeah, man, you can't be slipping those $5 bills in there. Gonna get yourself in trouble, man. All right. If you guys have any more questions, happy to answer them. But I do have a couple of extra pieces of news, and even though I don't have this in the show notes, I actually have something I was thinking about that I thought I would share. But Amazon has overtaken Best Buy in electronic spending share, which I didn't realize Best Buy still had them beat. But consumers are, of course, opting for, the online giant over brick and mortar staple when it comes to electronic spending. Numerator's latest consumer electronics tracker reveals that Amazon has overtaken Best Buy in the electronics space, accounting for 30% of overall sales in select consumer electronics categories in the past year, compared to Best Buy's 28%. Amazon's share of electronic spending spiked in July 2025 to 43% due to its Summer Prime Day event. Walmart, of course, holds steady in third place in electronic spending, ending September of 2025 with 12.8% of consumer spending. Walmart was then followed by Costco, Target, and Sam's Club, which each captured a single-digit share of electronic spending all year long. I did not realize that Best Buy was still taking in more than Amazon was when it came to electronics, but I don't know, I feel like this is big news that's kind of unreported a bit.
Yeah. And Best Buy, I believe, had a surprising quarter, or whatever their most recent.
They beat earnings.
Yeah.
So did Macy's.
I just saw that
Macy's
today.
Beat earnings for the third quarter in a row. That's
crazy.
A little over $2 earnings per share. But okay, here's what I found insane. Dollar Tree came in at $5.05 earnings per share.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they do a massive buyback over the last several
Not that
years?
I'm
I mean,
not that I'm aware of. And I don't know if their number of outstanding shares is as large as Macy's.
that's
Uh
where I was going. Yeah.
yeah, but I thought that was just kind of crazy.
Yeah. And then actually that was a point that I was going to make earlier when you were going over the Black Friday and Cyber Monday data of 10% increases. I was going to draw the comparison, and I'm glad you brought this up about Best Buy. Because when you relayed the data, it had the estimates by the whoever's reporting it, and then the one was like the one number you said was like 187 million, and it came in at 200, or 187 billion came in at 203, which is like a 10% increase. When it comes to stocks, like stock prices will go through the roof over a fraction of a percentage higher than the estimates, earnings estimates. And I know it's different sciences. I understand that. But just to put it in perspective, like if this was a stock, and earnings came in 10% above what basically the market had it priced in, the stock would absolutely go bonkers. Right.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and I only say that, but and it's not apples to apples. Again, I understand that, but it reinforces the point of being bullish on e-commerce, because it's blowing estimates out of the water. But yeah, and then Amazon overtaking electronics. That's, I'll be honest with you, from a consumer perspective, it's not easy to buy electronics online.
No, it's not.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if maybe is it too early to give some of the credit to Rufus? Because I know Rufus has helped me clarify quite a bit, because unless it's brand registered, and even that's not a guarantee, but Amazon listings can be kind of all over the place as far as the information, especially if you were looking for something specific. Like I
Yeah.
found my son's moving into a new apartment, and he said he needs a TV. So that was one of the things that I had on my radar. But a big sticking point on whether it's going to be considered a good TV by my son or not is the amount of ports.
Mhm.
So I needed to make sure, and I tried to look through, and it wasn't immediately obvious. So I went to Rufus on this. I found a 50-inch Roku for like $228. Check Keepa, it was legitimately a discount, not massive, but it was down from like 258 or something like that. But I needed to know the ports, so I just went right to Rufus. I said, how many HDMI outputs, and how many outputs overall does this have? And it spit back the information. So that made it a whole lot easier, because I felt myself kind of groan a little bit when the link took me to Amazon when I found the deals,
Mhm.
and I was like, ugh, if it's knowing what we know, especially, if it's a third party seller, or, who's selling it, and if there are variations, it's like, I don't want to have to comb through all that stuff, like it's not easy. So I think that's saying something for Amazon to grab the title on electronics, especially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Shane, credit related question. I will try to give you some advice. Whether or not it's good is another thing. Took a hit on my score and really could use the extra dough to go ham right now. Best way to get more credit outside of time. Um, I I jokingly tweeted the other day that I was Googling loan sharks near me. Um, uh, I don't know if there's any great ways to do this. I am very careful about telling people to go and borrow money from friends and family, um, because that typically a couple of things happens. One, something happens, you can't pay it back, and it strains relationships. Or two, you make so much money, and they realize, and they're wondering why they're only getting a 10% return on their money. When you made a 30% return on the money, and they feel like they should kind of be, a not so silent partner, and then that strains the relationship. Um, man, this one's tough. You could go the PayPal working capital route. If you use QuickBooks, they offer loans. American Express offers loans. If you've got an American Express card, maybe Amazon has some loan offers for you. Those would be the fast ways. Now the problem is all of those options are typically going to be more expensive. Um, but that's kind of the price you pay if you can't go the traditional, I need to go get a 0% APR card right now. Um, Outside of that, I'm not really sure if there's any other great ways to raise some capital at the moment. Chris, you got anything?
No, I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned Amazon, because that's where I was going to go. Because if credit's the issue, and I'm saying all this assuming you could use it to go ham, and assuming that if you got it, you would go ham, right? Because there is a risk depending on which avenue you go. But my first thought was Amazon, because you skip the credit profile, and you should have some pretty strong sales data. So if you can look at the avenues that are going to look at the revenue that you're generating, we're in Q4, so your orange bar should be going in the right direction as far as easing, a creditor's mind on whether to lend you. So that's, use what you have that has some weight and some attractiveness to a lender, and that would be exhaust all your resources that you can get based on your store itself.
Yeah. The one thing I would try to suggest you stay away from is stay away from, you see, you have loan offers for 100K, but at 9%. Sure. Um, and listen, and I've taken these loans from Amazon before, at 12%. You can make it work, you know. Uh, it can hurt cash flow a little bit as things go on, but if you turn that money over enough, honestly, 9% cost on your money, if you can make a 30-45% ROI, is really actually pretty cheap. And especially, and I know everyone's like, oh, well, I don't pay interest on my credit cards. Well, yeah, everyone says that, but they probably are if they're holding for any period of time, and they're just not being honest or not calculating it properly. And if they are paying interest on some credit cards, well, that's going to be well over 9%. So the one thing I would steer you away from is I would try to stay away from any factoring companies as long as you possibly can. They look very attractive on the front end. But once you really dig into the numbers, those factoring companies get real expensive real quick, even though you get access to some of your money a bit faster if you're on like a 7 or 14-day hold from Amazon. So yeah.
Yeah, 9% is exactly what my business line of credit is at right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it's not a loan, that's a line of credit, and I can make interest only payments. So it's, it's a bit different. But I mean, unfortunately, the reality of it is, if you can't use personal credit because you took a hit there, that's the trade-off. If you're running low on options, maybe 9% isn't so bad.
Yeah. And Big T is absolutely right here. You should try to get it removed. Open up ChatGPT, open up Perplexity, open up Grok. Tell it what happened. What came onto your credit report. Ask for the very best kind of letters and process to get it deleted from your account as quickly as possible. and then start mailing off some letters, or going through, whatever online form is required, to try to get it removed, if it's some sort of hit. You'd be surprised how often you can get those handled that way. There was a time when I had to clean up my credit, and half the stuff, um, was taken off with letters. The other half of the stuff was taken off via negotiations.
Mhm.
And listen, I don't know what the hit on your credit is, but let's just say it's bad debt. Okay. If it is bad debt, I would highly suggest that you negotiate. Um, and I'm talking like negotiate for 5 cents on the dollar. Uh, and really price anchor them and let them bring you up to maybe 10 cents on the dollar. I This is not, it's not my proudest moment, but I was able to get some bad debt removed years ago, um, for about 12 cents on the dollar. It was, uh,
Mhm.
I reached out to them. I suggested 5 cents on the dollar. They suggested 20, and we ended up kind of meeting at 12, and ended up paying a couple $100 for a couple $1,000 worth of bad debt, with the contingency and a signed piece of paper that they remove it from the credit report as soon as it was paid. After you have that paperwork, then you pay it. So,
And that part can't be stressed enough, because there is a huge difference between a formerly bad trade line on your credit report marked or going away completely, or marked paid as agreed, versus settled. You will
mhm,
still get you won't get as much of a score bump if it says settled, even though it's closed and off your credit. That's some bad credit that's going to linger, and get it in writing as you negotiate, and don't
mhm.
send any money until you receive that paperwork with that guarantee.
Yep. All right. Last piece of news here. Amazon is testing delivery in 30 minutes or less, pulling the old dominoes. So Amazon's testing half hour or quicker deliveries of groceries and household essentials in parts of Seattle and Philadelphia. They're calling it Amazon Now. It does cost about $14 per order, or about $4 for a Prime member. Orders under $15 also incur an additional $2 fee. And to be able to do this, Amazon said that they've set up small fulfillment facilities designed for efficiency close to Seattle and Philadelphia, where they're testing this. Um, this is on top of them speeding up delivery to 4,000 rural areas. If Amazon can speed up the delivery to 4,000 rural areas by the end of the year, and if they can roll out, say, the top 100 cities, with 30-minute or less delivery, I mean, I'm not going to call it. I'm not going to call lights out for Walmart, but I mean, we're talking a major ding to Walmart.
Major ding to Walmart. It's a major boost to Prime retention. It's a major boost to platform spend overall. That's going to boost that number. It's another layer of bricks on the walled garden, as far as I'm concerned. Um,
Yeah.
this is, it's so funny you brought up Domino's. I have a newsletter issue. So whoever, anybody who's on my mailing list, if you get the newsletter tomorrow, I wrote the Domino's reference before he just said it. I promise you, I swear to God. I made a mention of remember the Noid?
Yep.
Remember the little red guy? Yeah, that's I made a reference to him too. So you'll just have to take my word for it. But yeah, this is interesting, it's some of the analysis that I saw. Thought maybe this is a negative. Maybe it pulls away from third-party seller staples, because essentially this is going to be household items. Think over-the-counter medication, milk, eggs, paper products, medicine cabinet kind of stuff. So there was the one angle that saw it as a potential threat to third-party sellers selling medicine cabinet stuff on normal listings.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's a net negative overall.
Yeah, I might push back a little bit, and it might actually be helpful to those kinds of listings. And let me explain. So, a lot of people will stay away from listings where you can get the item delivered from Whole Foods. Not me, because you'll often see third-party sellers on those listings at $4 or $5 more, and they sell through just fine because Whole Foods is only in certain areas. So I may not get any sales in the Orlando metro area because there's so many Whole Foods here, but I will get deliveries to, I don't know, outside of Gainesville, where there are none, at a higher price. And those low prices end up keeping the sales rank nice and low. And so when people look for that type of product, it pops up, and they just don't have the Amazon Now or the Whole Foods available to them.
It's almost a free PPC, right? Because
right.
Amazon's going to put the Whole Foods offer front and center, so you're just kind of riding that wave. So if somebody sees the sponsored ad or something, but then goes to click and says, "Oh, you can't get it delivered from Whole Foods. You don't have one available." Third-party sellers sitting right there if they still want it bad enough.
Absolutely.
It's a great point.
All right, fly for fun. I had an FBM order last Sunday for delivery yesterday. The earliest it could be given to UPS or FedEx was Monday, so I was charged $45 overnight shipping. What did I do wrong? Your template has got to be incorrect. You probably, it sounds like you're offering expedited shipping, because Amazon knows that you can't give it to UPS or FedEx on a Sunday, or USPS on a Sunday. So you're probably offering expedited shipping or overnight shipping for either free or very cheap. You should go look at your shipping template and make sure that it's correct. In terms of offer count graph spikes, where would be the no-go zone, and where would be a good time to jump in? This is a difficult one to answer without looking at a bunch of different Keepa graphs. And I'll explain why. So let's say, for example, that you see a listing that has gone. Actually, I'm on one. Okay, it's gone from 5 sellers to 30 sellers very quickly. Very popular sale, and a lot of people would expect the price to come down. Now it's come down a little bit, but nowhere near where a lot of people would think, because the velocity is so high. I mean, it's just selling the lights out. So the price is staying pretty flat. Yeah, it's hard. Essentially, what you don't want is you don't want to hop on listings where the number of sellers is going up at a higher clip than the velocity can handle. So if you see velocity increasing and the number of sellers going up, you're probably okay. But if the velocity is staying the same and the number of sellers is going up significantly, well, you're going to want to stay away, because you're going to have to see some price come down.
Yeah. I don't know if I could put it into words, the exact ratio, but there are plenty of times where, especially on the Monday night sourcing show, where seller count is clearly spiking, but I tell everybody on the show, it's like, I'm still interested because of the seller rank, or the sold over the last 30-day badge that Amazon's put on. There's definitely a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
The badge obviously makes it easier, but think advent calendars late in November. You're going to see there are going to be a lot of listings that have pretty significant seller count spikes, but demand is about to hit its peak at the same time. So there are plenty of those listings that have seller count spikes that'll make you pause a little bit until you kind of get the lay of the land. And on plenty of those listings, I'm buying without any nervousness at all.
Absolutely. Big T, saw a video that I doubted because you guys hadn't covered it, and it's a perfect news story. 24% of Chinese sellers have registered U.S. LLCs to avoid tax, and now PL people can sue them and basically get default judgments. Interesting. So I did not know that Chinese sellers were filing for U.S. LLCs. I do know that China has started collecting tax on Chinese sellers selling in the U.S. Didn't bring it up because I wasn't sure that it was really in our wheelhouse. A lot of PL kind of stuff from over there, and didn't really affect us arbitrage sellers too much. But it is interesting what's going on. Amazon is even giving the data to the Chinese government, sales data, and a lot of the provinces over there, I think they're called provinces, are not understanding that sales data and net profit are different. And so they're sending out tax bills on the entire sales data, and having these massive tax bills. So yeah, it's very, very interesting time in e-commerce. We may have a PL renaissance next year as well.
Makes sense that that's one of the ways that they would try to get out of it, is to file the US LLC, but they got a big surprise if some of the more litigious PL sellers take some action. It's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's good theater. If it isn't our lane, but it is fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Any advice on pricing ASINs in which Amazon are consistently lower and my FBA price is $90 higher? The listing has a really good BSR rank and high velocity. Do I hold my price or cut your losses? I'd have to see. I'd have to see the if Amazon's $90 lower and always in stock, you're gonna have to cut your losses. You're not gonna make a sale on that one. You may want to check eBay. Maybe it's one of those weird products that sells for much more on eBay, and see if you can move it there. Now if Amazon goes in and out of stock and the price goes up to $90 on a regular basis, then you could hold your price. But yeah, that's one of those ones we'd have to take a look at. So
yeah, and if there is evidence, if assuming you did your due diligence, if there's a realistic chance of Amazon going out of stock and then you basically becoming, I don't know if you get the buy box or you become the lowest offer when Amazon's out of stock, from there it just kind of becomes managing long-term storage. Basically you got to kind of adjust your liquidation strategy from there, right? Obviously you want to hold out as long as possible if there's a real possibility, but from there it kind of becomes a trade-off. How much do I want to potentially pay in storage versus the potential of being able to sell this $90 over what Amazon has it at?
yeah. So I know that sometimes we have like a a business law or rule or razor or something like that, but I was thinking on my drive home yesterday, and I know nobody knows this, but yesterday I had the good fortune of being invited to go play a round of golf with someone who has literally been on the tour, and is a PGA pro, and he also crushes it as an Amazon seller. Incredibly kind, show up. We play a round of golf at one of my. It was funny. One of my favorite places is just this local public course. It's pretty narrow, which makes it a little difficult. At least on the front nine, it's pretty narrow. On the back nine, it opens up quite a bit. Um, but he was like, this is the shortest course that I've ever played. And I think total it was maybe 5,600 yards. And he's like, I normally play like 7,200. He's like, that's the average. And I was like, that's interesting. But he offered while we were playing, he was like, would you be okay if I, coach you a little bit? Because I mean, I'm I'm not a great golfer. I love the game, but I'm like a bogey, double bogey kind of player regularly. And I would love to be like a bogey par player. That would be amazing. To shoot under 95. Okay, to shoot under 100 consistently would be amazing. um, and now I'm someone who I try to be supremely coachable, and I was like, you give me all the tips. Um, and I mean, he fixed just a couple of things, uh, and like, fixed my stance on my drive. Um, Immediately went from hitting. I was kind of hook it a bit, but I just started bombing them 250 yards straight, and it fixed my long irons. I've never been able to hit that perfect shot with that beautiful divot, and I actually did one. Um, Throws a lot of sand and dirt in your face, so I kind of don't like it, but um, and really helped me with putting. Just three very small changes, but because I was willing to listen and be coachable, I saw those changes like almost immediately, and it got me to thinking about the 80-20 rule. 20% of your input is going to drive 80% of your outputs. But if you're willing to be coachable and you find the person who can help you just get 5% better at that 20% piece of your business, you can have changes that are an order of magnitude greater than what you might be able to do, because you're going to put the leverage at the right points.
Mhm.
And I really got to thinking about this because I've noticed some people on social media who ask for help, and then when it's offered, well, they're either like, well, that's not what ChatGPT said, or I'm smarter than that, kind of stuff, when they're actually wrong. ChatGPT hallucinated. Uh, they don't have the experience, and yeah, it's just very interesting. So I thought those were correlated a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, it reminds me of the first part early on in the book that I'm reading, Reset by Dan Heath. I forget which brother. I think it's Dan Heath. They write books together sometimes, but this is just the one brother on his own. But that's a throwback to the information that he shared about progress being the biggest motivator, and how management was blind to it, and how we can use that. And that's essentially what you got. You had small little tweaks. You were open to it. You were coachable, and then you immediately saw improvement. So the progress, then essentially, I saw somebody else called fun. What we really mean when we say what we want to do and what's fun is essentially what we're saying is what's going to get us excited. Because it's the anticipation of something, which is the true dopamine hit. So it's you see the progress, and then that creates the excitement, and then from there it's just off and running. You have like a built-in trough of motivation and energy to keep moving from there, and that's a pretty powerful thing if to harness, especially with what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, couple more questions, and we'll get out of your guys' hair this evening. So MW2 snipers, I see many other sellers, FBA and FBM, are all $90 higher. It's just two horizontal lines. One is Amazon, one is FBA, but a $90 spread. Offer count is slowly creeping up. My guess is those merchant fulfilled sellers are drop shipping and just hoping for some weird random sale to happen. I don't know about the other FBA seller, or if you're the one other FBA seller, but it sounds like you probably just made a bad buy. It's probably time to cut bait on this one and learn from this one.
Unless it's a spotty horizontal line, if
it's
not, it isn't necessarily clear whether Amazon's in stock the whole time. I mean, if it's a true horizontal line, and that does imply that they're in stock the whole time, then yeah. But if that part, there may be hope there if that's the case.
I may have asked this before, but do either of you have a decent add-on that shows competitor stock levels, even when it's over $999? I had one, but it's bugged at the moment. Amazon kind of made that impossible. Like OS add-on used to be the thing to use. There's another one, a paid version called How Many. I don't know if they exist anymore or whatever happened to them. But there's nothing that I'm aware of that will actually do this for you. I do spend a fair amount of time in the sand. The sand is actually one of my strong points, though, because I spend so much time there. So,
yeah, the sand is, I mean, you don't have to actually hit the ball, which is difficult enough for me. So that's why I like the sand. It's like,
right.
I can chunk it, and it could be a good shot still. Like that's
absolutely.
I'm in.
Is there a reliable way to estimate stock count on a listing? How off is it on Keepa? Okay, so I'm not sure that you really need to estimate stock count. I mean, unless you're buying like 1,000 units and you're worried about 3 other people also having 1,000 units in stock, and you want to, and it only sells 2,000 units a month, I wouldn't worry about it. And David, I don't know how big of a seller you are, how long you've been selling. If you've been doing this for like less than a year, it sounds like you're trying to be too granular. And I would take a step back. Like we don't want to take a 10,000 foot view of an ASIN to make a buying decision, but we also don't want a 2 millimeter view. We need to find kind of a healthy middle ground. Let's look at 1,000 feet. What does the sales velocity look like? What does the price history look like? Is there a lot of price action going up and down? What's the worst case scenario over the past year? Are we seeing movement in the seller count that should mean that there is sales velocity happening? Does Amazon let us know that there is 50 plus or 100 plus sales over the past month? If so, and you can buy it at a profit, test some. Don't worry about, oh, well, there's 10 sellers on here and 3 of them are competing for the buy box and 7 of them aren't, but there's 400 units in total on the listing. That doesn't matter. If you can be competitive with the buy box within, 3%, and you've got some units in there and it's selling, you're gonna sell through.
And look at it this way, like you're assuming, I'm going to assume that you're likely over analyzing this. And if you have everything dialed in, just pop in STFU in the comments, and I'll know you're talking to me. But think about it from this perspective. We're going to all these lengths to try to find out what other sellers have in stock in order to make a buying decision when Amazon doesn't even tell us how many units are actually selling. We have to estimate it based on sales rank, and it's, I mean, now we have 50 plus, 100 plus, so there's a little bit, we can kind of get a range. We can dial it in to within 50 units over a 30-day period now, which is a luxury compared to what it was before. But if it doesn't have that sold in the last 30-day batch, we're going on forecasting anyway. So, why would you be so specific about the counts that you're going up against when you'd be hard pressed to find sellers within, well, think about all the different sales estimates, right? Look something up on SellerAmp, see what they say the estimated monthly sales are. Compare that to Jungle Scout. You're gonna get numbers from 2,500 one place and 12,000 in the other place. You know what I mean? So it's like, if it's that varied, if we're that clueless, essentially, it kind of makes getting real granular about competitor seller counts seem a little silly, I think. No disrespect, of course, but just kind of the perspective of it.
And lounging in for stock levels, the main use I had was to see for repricing and restocking. Like, does that guy who's tanking have 3 or 300? That's fair. I wish that OS add-on, still existed. But again, that's really an Amazon thing. They've made that much more difficult to scrape that data. So, all right. Well, that's what I've got for this Wednesday. So we'll wrap it up there. We'll be back on Sunday, of course, to do this all over again with you guys. So we'd love to have you back, answer more of your questions, help you any way that we can. Lounging, welcome to OAC Plus. Glad to have you, and please bring all the questions and feel free to bug us there. We've got weekly coaching at noon tomorrow. I've got something that should be pretty good to share with you guys. Hopefully we'll allow some folks to do some hybrid arbitrage and pay for the next year of OAC Plus this December. So I'll see you guys there tomorrow at noon. All right. That's it from us, everybody. Have a great night.